Hello and welcome to Parallel Disney. Today is a special expedition episode. A new attraction opened up on January 17th, 2020 at Disneyland called Rise of the Resistance. This attraction previously opened in the Disney World dimension in December of 2019. In this video, I'll share some documented photos, videos, as well as share some of my personal experiences and tips that may help you out on your very own expedition. There will be no spoilers for the Rise of the Resistance attraction, so no worry there. But if you are interested in seeing a POV that I have taken, feel free to click on a link listed below or on the card from above. So one of my first concerns with going was the parking situation as I was driving. Online, the information that I found was that the parking structures open 1 hour before the park opens. And that'll include an hour before extra morning hours if there is an extra morning hours on that day. This being the case, I was still arriving several hours before then. As I was heading to Disneyland, I originally was navigating to the Mickey and Friends parking lot hoping for the best. But you were diverted, and the first parking structure that was open was the Toy Story parking lot. So if you're driving and plan on being over an hour early for the line, I recommend going to the Toy Story parking lot. Now, on the subject of arriving early, the main thing is getting in the gate before 8 o'clock. Even though the reservations aren't available until after 8 o'clock, you'll still want to be there pretty early due to potential congestions with parking and security. More on boarding passes later. I made it in line at Disneyland outside the turnstiles at around 5 a.m. At this time, all the lines were past the monorail track quite a bit. Eventually, the line started reaching the entrance of Disney's California Adventure, and they started letting people in well before 6 o'clock. Some of these photos that I taken inside of the park were time-stamped at 6 o'clock. So for me to have gone in there, it probably took around 10 minutes. So the gates were probably open at around 5:50. At this point, people were allowed all the way up to what I'm going to call the first rope drop, which is the rope just before the hub and ends at Main Street. At this point, if you wanted some food or coffee, you can go onto the sidewalks, but if you weren't, you'd want to stay on the street. If you're going to use the Disneyland app, go ahead and use the restrooms or get some coffee. At 6:30, they dropped the first rope and allowed everyone to go into the hub. At this point, you need to know your objectives. If you need to be issued a boarding pass, you need to go to Splash Mountain or Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. Astro Blaster is the shorter trip, but this may not matter because they're still not going to issue out any boarding passes until 8 o'clock. Therefore, I suggest going to whichever one seems like there are fewer people going to where you can get as close to the ropes as possible. If you are using an app, you still may want to get in line just in case there's any technical difficulties. Technology is not always the most reliable. If you are able to get a boarding pass, you can leave the line and nothing's the worse for wear. Both types of passes are linked to your ticket, so there is no double dipping. If you find yourself super excited about Rise of the Resistance and want to just go right to the attraction just to see what's going on, and there may be characters out there were at least on the first day, you may want to pick one of these two routes as they seem to be the shortest. And that is queuing up by Frontierland to head past Big Thunder Mountain, or heading outside Adventureland and going around the rivers of America. The path by Thunder Mountain is the shortest, however it has narrower walkways. This can potentially be a problem if you're a little bit further back from the ropes and you have a bunch of slower walking people in front of you. If you are right up front and right next to the ropes, this is probably where you want to be. If you're a little further back, I would suggest maybe trying the Adventureland one because you'll have much wider walkways to potentially walk around people. But remember, no running. At 7:45, the second ropes were lifted and then everyone was able to go to wherever they desired. At this time, I made my way to the entrance to Rise of the Resistance. I was hoping for maybe like a little show or something for it being opening day, but they just had a few characters out that were just doing a little meet and greet with some of the people that were standing around. Something of note that I wish to share is that since I got to the park in line at 5 a.m. all the way up to this point, every so often I was checking the Disneyland app and just taking a shot to see if there were reservations available just in case the 8 o'clock was just a rough time they were going to start issuing the tickets. But all my efforts were fruitless. The reservations did not start until 8 on the dot. Making a reservation, from what I can tell, seems to be somewhat of a lottery and speed game. So there's probably no real strategy on to get a good boarding group. I'll go ahead and share what I did. No guarantees, of course. But I did manage to get a boarding group 19, which was actually pretty good because the boarding group started at number 12. I repeatedly was pressing the home button and find out more repeatedly up until the clock said 8. When the clock switched to 8 and I pressed the find out more before it hit 8, I waited just a split part of a second and then the boarding group lit up and then I hit it. Oh yeah, and this reminds me, if you had Max Pass, you're able to make Max Passes as early as the first rope drop. After seeing my boarding number, I also heard other people exclaiming that they had boarding numbers that were in the 80s. And this was within just like the first minute. So it's definitely good to be quick because if you get above 82, you're not even guaranteed to get on the attraction. That being said though, I know that that day the boarding groups got well in the 90s. Any way you slice it, if you wish to ride Rise of the Resistance, be prepared that you may need to stay all day. Even though there was nothing special really going on, it was still cool to be there seeing all the various cameras for media, as well as several popular YouTube personalities. And one not so popular. Once you have your boarding pass, just be sure to check it every now and then or make sure your notifications are on. If you do not have the Disneyland app, there's various status boards around the park that you can look at to find out if your boarding group is available. Another thing of note, once the boarding passes were issued and the park opened at 8 o'clock, Rise of the Resistance didn't start taking on passengers until after 9. Now I'm not sure if that was intentional or if maybe the ride was having issues, but just bear in mind that the ride may not be open right away, so you definitely don't need to be standing around Rise of the Resistance, unless you want to be there for the atmosphere and the characters. After getting my boarding pass and standing around a while, I continued doing my research and documenting various attractions for the Parallel Disney project. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video potentially helped people out who went to experience Rise of the Resistance at Disneyland for themselves. For those new to my channel, my usual videos compare the differences between the same attractions that are located at different Disney parks, hence Parallel Disney. Anyway, if you like this video, please consider subscribing and also checking out some of my other work.